This video is sponsored by SKILLSHARE. More on them later. Today we're going to be looking at LEGO's new Boba Fett's Throne Room set. But I think in order to really review it, we're going to have to also look at the Jabba's Palace set from 2012, which was the last LEGO set to depict Jabba's Palace. I have done a full review of this on the channel, so feel free to look at that, but for now, let me just give you a little refresher about the set. The LEGO Jabba's Palace set is small, but it manages to fit in a lot of the key elements we expect from Jabba's Palace, such as great minifigures for a lot of the key characters, Jabba's throne, and Han in carbonite, as well as a lot of little details that really add a lot to the atmosphere. The roof of the palace can be removed completely, allowing you to see inside more easily and access the figures. Moving Jabba's throne backwards reveals a sliding trapdoor to the Rancor pit below. And if you spin it around, you can see that they've actually managed to make it look like the exterior of the palace as well, including not only the general shape of the building, but also the front door and gatekeeper droid, which comes out of it. The back of the palace swings open for easy access, revealing a little hidey hole for Jabba's valuables behind the throne, as well as a very simple kitchen area. The Jabba's Palace set is definitely one of my favorite LEGO sets of all time, so I was very interested to see how this new set compared, and since it's been about 10 years since LEGO has released a Jabba's Palace set, and the original one's getting a little expensive on the secondary market, I also wanted to see how hard it would be to use this set to represent Jabba's Palace from Return of the Jedi. As you could probably tell from the size of the boxes that I showed you earlier, the 2012 Jabba's Palace set was bigger than this one, even though this new set technically has a few more pieces. The older set was also more expensive, retailing for $120 in 2012, compared to $99.99 for the new one. Let's go ahead and put it together and see what it looks like. And here is the completed throne room. We'll take a look at its individual features and parts in just a second, but first I want to look at the included minifigures as well. And that's where it becomes really obvious that this should have been called Bib Fortuna's throne room instead of Boba Fett's throne room. All of the characters are from the after credits scene in Season 2 of The Mandalorian, so we don't really get any of the ones that would be important in Boba Fett's throne room. First we have Bib Fortuna here, who has gained a little weight since his time with Jabba. It's a completely new figure and comes with a staff instead of the cape that he had with the other set. He does have an alternate face on his other side here, which you can use, I guess, when Boba Fett shows up in the throne room. He was not exactly pleased to see him, was he? Next is a character that many had thought might be Rystall from Jabba's palace, but it's just labeled Thelan Dancer on the box, so it's not clear to me if that character on the show was intended to be Rystall specifically or not. We also get an alternate face on her as well. It's kind of interesting that they chose to do her as a character because she was just in the background as opposed to the blue Twi'lek we saw on the throne. We also get a Weequay guard with a blaster here, and this appears to be a brand new figure. We have gotten two of these type of guards in the past, Weequays, one with the sail barge set on the left, and then with the skiff set a little bit later, but they're all unique figures, and it's nice to have this kind of variety. This Quarren isn't supposed to represent Keswick from Jabba's time, I think, but it is the first time we've gotten a Quarren minifigure. The first time I saw this figure, I thought it was just the same Gamorrean Guard minifigure that we got with the Jabba's Palace set, and also the Rancor Pit set a number of years ago, but as you can see, if you compare them, they are somewhat different. The kind of torso and head are mostly the same, although there's a difference in coloration on the skin there, but the legs are different. We have some printing on the legs of the new one, and also the hands are a different color, making it look like he's wearing gloves or something. So it's cool to get a new Gamorrean guard as well. You may recall that the two Gamorreans that served Boba Fett were shirtless, so this is actually another example of how this doesn't represent Boba's throne room. I think this next one is probably my least favorite figure in the set. There's just something about her that doesn't seem quite right for the character. I don't know, maybe it's this headpiece looks a little off. And the fact that they didn't include her helmet also doesn't help with the look. You can spin her head around for an alternate expression, although it's really not that different from the other one. It's smirking versus smirking slightly less, I guess. I'm also not thrilled with this giant gun that they've given her. I mean, it's appropriate. She's kind of a sniper, but it seems a little bit too big for a minifigure to hold, and it always sort of tilts off to the left, so yeah. Finally, we have Boba Fett himself, which I think is the same minifigure that came with the Boba Fett Starship set, although I don't actually have that one. And it's got some of the same problems in terms of the color of the helmet and backpack not really matching what it should be as shown on the chest, but otherwise, nice figure. So as I said, this is not really Boba Fett's throne room, and it kind of makes me wonder if they're going to be releasing some other things, other characters, or expansion sets or something that'll make this into a more appropriate throne room for Boba, but maybe we'll speculate on that in a little bit. On the left, we have a little alcove with some seats and a table with drinks on it where Jabba's guests can relax and talk, I guess. In the Jabba's Palace set, there were these two little tables here to kind of indicate that, but that's all there was, so this is a nice upgrade to that. In the center, we have the main throne room area, including Jabba's old throne with the chair that's been built on top of it. It just kind of slides out. It's not actually held in place with anything. Underneath the throne, you can see that there's a little hiding place for some blasters and what look to be bars of Beskar. And then there's quite a bit of detail actually in the background that's normally not very visible. So there's the meat rotisserie there in the center, and on either side of it are the red windows that you can see sort of on either side of the throne in a lot of photos of Jabba. There's a keypad and some containers and a table with a drink on it. Lots of cool details there. Looks like it might even be a hookah pipe there on the right attached to the wall. I'm not entirely sure what that is. The throne has an action feature built into it, so you can have Boba Fett come in and shoot Bib and then pull this lever, and he'll just get catapulted off the throne, which is kind of fun. And there's a similar feature on the stairs here to the right. You just turn this, and whoever is standing on the stairs will fall down as if they've been shot. The two sides of the palace here will fold in. You can have it be just at a slight angle like this, which I think looks pretty nice, or even put them all the way to a 90-degree angle, which is a little weird, but depending on how you want to display it, I guess it could work. And just like the 2012 Palace, you can turn it around and then open up the entire back of the throne room for easier access to all the play features there. I really like that they made the meat rotisserie actually rotate like this. And of course, it would be pretty difficult to reach in here if you couldn't open up the back like this, especially because you can't remove the roof. If we want to look over at the other side here, you can see that there's a lot more detail to the kitchen area than was in the Jabba's Palace set from 2012. So that's also a nice upgrade. So if we look at the back again, you can see it does look quite a bit like Jabba's Palace, with one exception, which we'll talk about. Over here we have the tower with the opening gate, just like on the other set. We've got some cannons that you can tilt and move around to aim. And you have a very similar gatekeeper droid feature, which you can push from the other side to make the droid come out. And then you can also make the gate go up and down, although it doesn't have as elaborate of a locking system as the previous set did. So there are a lot of similarities between these two sets, and in the new set there are some features that are better fleshed out than they were in the 2012 set, or maybe they have added things that weren't there at all. But generally speaking, when we look at these two sets side by side, I feel like the old set is a bit more impressive looking. The tower is taller, the throne room generally seems bigger, and especially if we turn them around like this, you can see that this does look like Jabba's Palace, whereas this appears to be missing a little something here, right on the top area. You can see that it's missing the entire top of the roof section right here. And, it's also got these little connector pieces here that don't seem to serve any purpose in the set as it stands now. So it seems extremely likely to me that they're going to be adding something to this set later on in the form of an expansion that would make up this roof section and also maybe include something like the interior of the palace, like Boba's Bacta tank or something along those lines. Especially looking at these two side by side, it's very hard for me to believe that this is what they intended the finished version of the palace to look like. In fact, just putting the roof from the 2012 palace on this new set makes it look a lot better. As I recall, back in 2012, we were in a similar situation with the original Jabba's Palace, because we didn't know if they were going to be adding some kind of a Rancor pit accessory. And then they finally did later on, and it became obvious that it was designed to sort of plop on top like this from the very start. Since the Rancor played a big part in the Book of Boba Fett, you might ask if they're going to be adding a Rancor pit accessory as well on the bottom somehow. If you look at the bottom of the original Jabba's Palace, you could see that there were some little holes here for pegs that were eventually going to be built into the Rancor pit. The new set here does not have anything like that. If you look on the bottom, that doesn't automatically rule out the possibility of them adding some kind of Rancor pit accessory, but it doesn't really tell us one way or the other. And yes, you could technically place the new set on top of the old Rancor pit, and it's not completely ridiculous, I guess, but it doesn't really fit. Assuming LEGO never actually adds their own, adding a Rancor pit section might actually be kind of a fun project, but it's a little beyond the scope of this video. But one thing I did want to try was to see if we could convert the throne in this set to something that the old Jabba minifigure could use. But before we do that, I'd like to tell you about this video's sponsor, SKILLSHARE. SKILLSHARE is an online learning community with thousands of classes on a wide variety of topics. There are no ads, and they're adding new premium classes all the time, so you're sure to find something that interests you. Recently, I've been taking the Ultimate Crash Course to Living on the Road, How You Can Afford a Life of Travel and Adventure by Bob Wells. And I should probably preface this by saying that I have zero interest in living on the road or doing anything like this, but I found this a fascinating course because I like seeing how other people live, and it also can give you a little bit of insight into your own life. Now, as a collector and someone who likes the creature comforts, the idea of sleeping in my car or van or whatever is not super appealing, but I found it fascinating to see how he did it and why he did it. And, it's an interesting thought experiment as well to think about how your life could be different if you made some different choices. I found that I am sometimes just watching things on Skillshare that I don't really have any intention of doing later on. I just like learning about things or seeing how other people do things, and you may find that you are the same. The first 1,000 people to click the link in the video description will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. Thanks again to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. At first, I wasn't entirely sure that you could convert this into a throne that Jabba could use, and I wasn't sure that he would fit in the little alcove if he was on top of the throne, but I wanted to give it a shot. So first I removed all of these extraneous parts for the chair and all of the accessory parts on the top of the throne, like the little pillows and things that they have, and you're left with this. And it turned out that it was just about the right size for Jabba to sit on top of. And in fact, this one on the top here is the original one from the 2012 set. It's exactly the same size, basically. It does have some little parts on it that you're supposed to use to attach Jabba to it. And I think in this case, if we were to use any kind of attachments for Jabba, it might make him just a little bit too tall to fit in this alcove here. But we can just plop him on top of the throne and have him sit there, no problem. I had been afraid that I would have to maybe modify the rest of the palace somehow to get him to fit, so this was good news. So I decided to take some of the figures from the other Jabba sets and see how nice of a palace I could make. So just to give you a little tour, we have Weequay on the roof looking for a thermal detonator here. Below him we have Reeves and a Quarren having a little drink. And to their right we have the main throne room area with Leia, Salacious Crumb, and Jabba on the throne. And, of course, we have Bib Fortuna there plotting his eventual takeover. In the back, we have the Thelan Dancer. And, of course, we have C-3PO in a consulting capacity there on the left. And if you look in the far left, we have Boba Fett and Han and Carbonite. And yes, it was something of a challenge to get all of them in there, although being able to open up the back of the throne room was a big help. And it wasn't really that bad, actually. We also have Lando and a Bomar monk standing guard by the front gate, and a Gamorrean way up in the tower. Not sure how he gets up there. Here we have the droids when they first knocked on Jabba's door. And we also have Malakili and a Gamorrean guard enjoying some lunch in the kitchen area. So yes, it definitely is possible to use this new set to represent Jabba's palace, and it's not even very difficult. The only problem you're going to have is actually getting the minifigures to use for a display like this. Most of them have been out of circulation for years now and are fairly expensive on the secondary market, but you can get knockoffs of them that are relatively decent quality from places like AliExpress. It's up to you if you think that's something you want to do. Personally, I don't really think it's that big of a deal because you can't buy these things new. You're not buying the knockoff instead of Lego. In fact, you're buying it to help you use other Lego sets, if that makes sense. But obviously, it's up to you to make that decision. But getting back to this set as it was originally sold, my conclusion is basically it's a nice set. It seems a little bit pricey at $99.99 for this amount of bricks and figures and everything, but it's well designed, and I think it is a pretty good representation of that after-credits scene from The Mandalorian. But we're definitely going to need some other characters to represent how it appeared in the Book of Boba Fett. This video was brought to you with the help of Skillshare, as well as my patrons on Patreon, including these Palace VIPs right here, and especially Angelica Brady and Underworld Palace Customs. Thank you all very much. If you'd like to know how you can help support the channel for as little as $1 a month, click the link in the video description.